This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast, bringing you current events, news, NFL, NBA, MLB, soccer, UFC, boxing, and more. Make sure to hit us up on the website, thesportshound.com. And now, here's your host, Tigsta.
What's happening, everybody? We back at it again. You already know, Real Sports Bark, brought to you by the Sports Hound. I'm yours truly, Tigsta, and we got a lot of news jumping off today, especially with the NFL. Even though they're in their off season, it's never an off season, you dig? So let's go ahead and jump into it. We had the Kansas City Chiefs earlier, a few weeks ago, traded Alex Smith to the Washington Redskins. That's right. Washington Redskins has received Alex Smith as their new quarterback, meaning the writing is on the wall for Mr. Cousins. No more, well, I can't say no more. No more being hit with the franchise tag. It could happen again. They could franchise him and then trade him. Word on the street is that Denver Broncos might be interested. So we'll see, because also I'm hearing that the Denver Broncos are shopping Simeon, quarterback of their team, out on the market also. So obviously they got their eyes set on somebody. Either I don't see the draft, because that would become a development type situation with a rookie coming in. But to get somebody like Cousins straight over and give him the keys to the Porsche, the Bentley, whatever it is that they say they are over there as far as car-wise, he's getting the keys to it. Just hope it don't end up being a damn Uber. But anyway, let's get to it. Today what happened, the Chiefs also made another big trade. They traded their Pro Bowl corner, Mr. Marcus Peters. Traded him. I mean, this is getting to the part where we're gonna have free agency. You got the combine coming up, and you also have the draft. Also, the draft is coming up in a couple of months too, though. So teams are trying to free up these salaries off their cap, and also getting rid of players that they feel that it's time to move on from. Which I guess the Kansas City Chiefs feel Marcus Peters is one of those players to move on from. He's not an old dude. He's young. I think he's about 26, 25, if I'm not mistaken. Cornerback, Pro Bowler. They traded him to the Los Angeles Rams for some draft picks. The draft picks haven't been known yet, but I'm hearing that it's not a first rounder. So it's other rounds that's like grouped together in a package for the Chiefs for the services of Mr. Marcus Peters. So that leads me to believe that with that being done, and the last couple of years with the Rams franchising Tremaine Johnson, that I think they're going to let him go ahead and walk and hit free agency. Just because he's going to probably go check and see what kind of money he can get out there on the market as a free agent. But if they do happen to bring him back and add him to that nice young core of defensive players that they have with the Rams, that could be a hell of a secondary, you figure, with Peters and Johnson back there, you know. So we just going to have to sit back and see in exactly what kind of moves the Rams have in store. Are they going to move on from Johnson and go ahead and go into the draft or free agency or whatnot? But, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to go in free agency for another corner if you're letting a nice young one go that you've been franchising the past 2 years anyway. So that is a wait and see also. Also, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars releasing running back Chris Ivory after 2 seasons with the team. What that does is, especially with the backs that Jacksonville have, that will save the Jags about $4 million against the salary cap this year. So, they're making moves probably to either hand out extensions or maybe be a player in free agency for a player or two, since they did make it all the way to the AFC Championship, losing to New England, which they had total control of that game in the first half. So they have a nice young team there. And like I said, that adds money to them to play with, to get, under that cap. So that's about $4 million. But at the same time, you have Chris Ivory, who is 29 years old, and here goes that mark in the NFL where you're a running back and you get ready to hit that number 30. The 30-year mark as a running back is considered the end of your career with the team that you probably spent most of your career with anyway. Or the second team, if you go off in free agency and sign with someone, this age 30 is usually bam, that's it. That's the wall for a running back because now they're going to find the next young thing to replace you because the drafts always have running backs. You know what I mean? As many colleges are out there and many running backs that enter the draft, you may not be a running back in the first round, but you can be serviceable in the mid rounds. Even I say, depending on how good you are, second, third round. If you're elite, you would go first round, but not like number one overall unless you just that one. You know what I mean? That one generational type running back that your Bo Jacksons and running backs of that nature. Where you have to have that running back, but I mean, it's sad to say that running backs are a dime a dozen. It's not like an issue where you have to go out there and spend a high draft pick on a running back. And so you figure if a running back coming out of college, you can come out pro after 3 years removed from high school. So if you do college 3 years, you're probably around 21, youngest 20. You know what I mean? As entering the draft early, as coming off a junior year in college, no more than around 22 as a senior. So you figure your shelf life in the NFL from the way it looks, 6 years, 6, 7, 8 years is max.
You want sports? We got it right here. This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast.
That's just the way it is. I mean, we've seen this happen, a lot with running backs hitting that 30-year-old, age mark. That's a trip though because, I mean, it just keeps happening and happening and happening. So I guess that's the magic number in football where it's time to move on. And you hit 29, 30, boy, you better have you some bags and stuff packed and ready to hit that highway because you about to get the door. You know what I mean? And they gonna let you go. So they got replacements for you. But yeah, they're letting Chris Ivory go from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I said, he's 29. I don't know what team he's gonna go probably try to test the market with, but everything is done by committee these days. So, but he had 25 games with the team. In those last couple of years, he has a total of 821 yards rushing with 229 carries, 5 touchdowns. And last year was, I think, the not so hot for him. He was only averaging about 3.4 yards a carry last year. So the production is like real down for him compared to the times with what was it, the Jets and also the Saints he played with. So yeah, man, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the free agency offers. But yeah, he'll probably be on a committee staff of running backs where there's probably 3 running backs that's going to go in and out of the game. So that's just the way the league has turned to. I guess they'll try to stretch out your career by not giving you so many carries, you're splitting it with other people. Also in the NFL news, we have the Oakland Raiders have released Sebastian Janikowski, who were their kicker for 18 years. I remember this dude coming out of Florida State. Hell of a leg. Hell of a leg. It's always been stated in practice he was known for kicking 70-yard field goals. He does have he has tied the record as far as the longest field goal in NFL history, which I think was about 60. Was it 62, 63, somewhere around there? He did that in Denver against the Broncos. That high elevation thins out the air, so the ball travels farther. So, yeah, man. But 18 years, man, coming out of Florida State. I remember that dude, man. He has a hell of a leg, lefty. So yeah, man, his stint with the Oakland Raiders have finally come to an end, and we'll see what happens. He can probably end up with a team that's a contender now that needs a kicker. So it's just a wait and see type thing. Um, Also, we have with the Cleveland Browns. Last year, you guys probably know that Josh Gordon was reinstated by the commissioner after his suspension to come back into the league with the Cleveland Browns. He only played 5 games last year, and his free agent status was up in the air as far as if he was going to be a restricted free agent or an exclusive rights free agent. But the thing is, to be a restricted free agent, you need from the collective bargaining agreement, you need to have 4 years of NFL service to be granted that status as far as restricted free agent. The thing with him, and they were trying to figure this out as far as what it would be, and it just says that in writing that when you play in the league, what's considered a full year, and this is where he just barely missed it. To be considered a full year of service, you would have to play at least 6 games for that team for that year. He only played 5, so he fell short. As far as being able to get that status he wanted, as far as being a restricted free agent. So he is a exclusive right free agent for the Cleveland Browns. Um, yeah, man, it's the way that these contracts are worked out with the players in the league is kind of tricky. It you can't really say it benefits one side over the other. I think it's just a fair gauge of how to operate, in discussions or as far as contracts and being free agents. What does a team that he's with have over the teams that's trying to get him type thing? So there's a lot of ink and crossing T's and dotting I's to, have those contracts and writing, and that's what they've come up with. So he only played 5 games last year. You need 6 for a full year of service, and he just missed out on that. So that's just the way that goes. Also, we have the Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins will place a franchise tag on wide receiver Jarvis Landry. That will give him 16 million. That would be his price tag for that team, that franchise tag for next season or this season coming. But he can still have action in free agency with other teams. The only thing is, other teams would have to give up a first round pick to sign him. So with that tag on him, if a team want to sign him and they want to give up a first round draft pick, then hey, that draft pick got to be given up. If you really want to. But I think that either he's going to end up staying with the Dolphins, or the Dolphins possibly could shop him around. If that happens and the team, comes up with an agreement to trade for him, they can go ahead and probably work out an extension, a longer, contract with him, which most likely probably would happen because a lot of players don't really like the franchise tag for the fact that if they really have their heart set on leaving and testing free agency, it prevents them from doing that, and it just takes away their power as far as representing themselves, as far as finding a relocated type, going to a new team to relocate in a new like setting. Sometimes you need a new setting if the old setting is played out, but franchise tags, they pay you, but they keep you where you probably don't want to be at if that's what it is. So yeah, we'll see what Miami has up their sleeve with him. Um, as far as Landry goes, he was productive last year though. For the last season, he had 112 catches for 987 yards last year with 9 TDs. So, and I think he was a Pro Bowler for 3 straight years. I think the first 2 years of him being in the NFL, he eclipsed the 1,100 yards mark. Last year he didn't.
This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast with your host, Tigsta.
You can't really just dismiss 987 yards, especially with 9 touchdowns. That's you giving your team something. And you figure with coming off his rookie deal, he could have tested the market and everything. But like I said, it's a wait and see thing with him. Also with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have released running back Doug Martin. The Pro Bowl running back, what they call a muscle hamster was his nickname they gave him down there. He was with the team for 6 years. But the Bucks, I think they're going after salary cap, relief, because it saves them like 6.75 million on the cap as far as releasing him. And here it goes again. It just so happens Mr. Martin is 29 years of age. So like I said, that 30-year mark is like in the NFL is like at running back. It's time to think about relocating, man, because teams usually give up and go after the next young legs, behind you and to take your place, so everybody's replaceable. That's just the way they get down. Also, we have the Dallas Cowboys are expected to place the franchise tag on DeMarcus Lawrence. But they do have the hopes of signing him to a long-term deal before the July 16th deadline. But I think March 6th is the deadline to franchise, pick the players that each team can franchise, and they're going to go ahead and do that with him. But their purpose is just to keep him long time. So, and I think he wants to be there too. It's just the numbers have to be right as far as on both parties, the player and the team. So usually stuff like that, it happens where they'll come out with a deal. I think Lawrence, he's solid for them. They're not gonna let him go anywhere. Hell, if they got to franchise him 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, they're gonna do what they got to do. But I think they're gonna work out a deal because both, player and team wanted each other. So that is something that will work in both teams' favor. If you missed it last weekend, we had a welterweight fight. Mr. Danny Garcia versus Brandon Rios. This was a good fight. Even though there was no belt involved, and you had Danny Garcia coming off that loss that he had, what was it, last year against Thurman, where Thurman took the belt from him in a decision. I think it was like 2-1 was the decision. Two judges over. I think one went in favor of Garcia and 2 went in favor of Thurman for Thurman to win that belt. But it was a good fight. But the thing was, I think Rios was a little bit slow getting to his target. The punches he threw, it's like Garcia seen him coming and was able to, defense against it, rather, easily because ducking and missing. But he was laying some good shots. And then all of a sudden, it was just the one shot that he needed, which was in the 9th round, that ended it in a TKO. He floored Rios. Rios sat there, took a count for a minute, tried to get up. He got up. When the ref told him to walk to him, man, that dude's legs was straight rubber. You know what I mean? He was having trouble trying to make it to the ref. His mind was telling him to go forward. Them legs was like, we ain't having that, bruh. You just caught one square. You know what I mean? Give us more than that. But yeah, man, they stopped the fight. But the kick was this. After the fight, you happen to have, I think Keith Thurman was at the fight. You also had Mr. Sean Porter. Now, Sean Porter jumped in the ring after this fight. It was all up on Danny Garcia, like he won't next. But see, Garcia wants Thurman again. See, and he's trying to get the belt. But see, the welterweight division, don't get me wrong. It seems like okay, let's go to the other weight classes. The heavyweight division is going to pan out. And I think eventually it's going to be a unified title holder in the heavyweights. Because you got about 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 different dudes with belts but they're scheduled to fight each other. You know what I mean? So down the line, I say by this is 2018, 2019. By the end of 2019, you might have a clear heavyweight title holder holding all the belts. It could come down to that, which that's good for the heavyweights because the heavyweights is it's kind of been lacking. You know, some since the era of the Tysons and the Kletzkos and the Lennox Lewis and the Evander Holyfields and even the return of George Foreman, and you had some solid dudes out there. Michael Moore, for his little minute, and man, the list goes on. But it's just after these past years, the heavyweights kind of like fell off, but it was the welterweights that came out of that and just gave you boxer after boxer that was just like top notch. I mean, man, I'm telling you, once they start putting these fights together with these dudes that have belts in the welterweights, dude, you're gonna have some good ones. Cause I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna run it down to you like this. Okay, look, with the welterweights, you have like, say for instance, the WBA. The WBA has really two title holders in that division in welterweights. You have Keith Thurman, who they consider to be the super champion, right? Then you have Lucas Matisse. He's a regular champion in the same weight class in the welterweights. Keith Thurman also has the WBC welterweight title. So he's holding two belts. Matisse got one in the WBA belt, like I just told you, regular champion belt. Then you also have, with the IBF, you have Errol Spence Jr. Now, if you haven't seen Errol Spence Jr. fight, you're missing out. This dude right here, this is one of my favorites. The welterweight is like my favorite division right now because I got a few fighters out there that I really like. I like Thurman. Thurman is patient. He hits hard and has a hell of a chin. Sean Porter, he presses you. He's going to force you to fight. If you want to box him, he's not going to allow that. He's going to make you fight him because he's going to put his head in your chest and just drive you down and just make you. If you go late rounds with him, good luck. Your stamina is up there because this dude is going to press you all fight long. He kind of reminds me of Madonna. When Madonna fight Mayweather and all he did was press him, that was a good technique to use against a boxer when you're in his chest. You know what I mean? Because a boxer usually wants you to have that distance so he can just reach you on the end of those punches. But when you're up in his chest, that's gone. That's gone. But yeah, Sean Porter is a solid boxer. Him and the Thurman fight was like classic.
You want sports? We got it right here. This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast.
And they was brawling. They was going at it. And both of them had a hell of a chin. So it's like they weren't going down. They were going to the cards. But they was going to beat each other's ass. You know what I mean? To get there. But, yeah, you got, like I said, Errol Spence Jr., the IBF champion. Then you have, everybody remember the WBO champ because it was Jeff Horn. If you don't remember Jeff Horn, the Australian dude that beat Pacquiao. Remember Pacquiao, and he lost on the cards, and it was kind of suspect because I even thought that Pacquiao won that fight against Horn, but you let Horn sit there and fight you the whole 12 rounds. So you should have got rid of him. You don't, like they said, you have a puncher's chance. Yeah, you have a puncher's chance. And if you let it go to the cards, not all the time them damn judges is gonna give you fair scores because somebody could be in somebody's pocket. And yeah, I said it because that's just the way it go. You have to be clear-cut winner. You have to the floor dude or just dominate them for like the whole 12 rounds. You know what I mean? Just to take any doubt that's in anybody's head or the judge's head of thinking that, oh, there's a possibility the other dude could have won. You got to take that out. You got to completely destroy your opponent. That's just the way it goes, man, because you don't want to leave nothing in no one else's hands as far as telling you if you won or not. When you might know clear cut you won, but them judges, I wouldn't put nothing past a judge. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have four divisions or belt divisions with different title holders, and it's gonna come. And then you have boxers that don't have titles. Like I said, Sean Porter doesn't have a title, but the dude is solid. You know what I mean? Then you got Danny Garcia coming back off of this win. You know what I mean? Which is gonna put him in the mix. But him and Sean Porter got into it in the ring because they basically want to get down with each other, and it almost got personal. You know what I mean? Where you had old Danny Garcia ready to, we could take it to the streets, but man, Sean Porter said, "To hell with all that. We trying to get some money. Let's do it in the ring." Which I understand. That's their profession. He wants to get up in there next because if he can take out Danny Garcia, that'll eliminate Danny Garcia from fighting Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman was out with his shoulder injury. And he's supposed to come back, I think, May. He's scheduled to fight. They don't have an opponent yet, but they will name one. But he even admitted it that he's not just gonna jump in the ring with a Sean Porter or with a Errol Spence right now. Not after coming off, I think it was shoulder surgery he had. But it makes sense. You don't just jump in there after you've been out with an injury. You have to work your way back. You know what I mean? So he'll probably get a couple of fights in this year. None of them will be title contending fighters. So look for like I said, I think it was podcast 1 or 2. Look for him to take on some serious competition 2019. That's when it's going to go down. 2019 in boxing is going I'm going to predict this now. 2019 in boxing is going to be an epic year in boxing, whether heavyweight, welterweight or whatnot, because you're going to have some solid fights where it's going to start unifying these belts. And it's going to be like high-end type quality boxers. This ain't going to be no boo-boo tomato can type dudes. These are going to be some solid dudes that can win just as easy as the other dudes standing in front of them. So look forward for 2019 to be a solid year in boxing. This year is going to set all that up. 2018 is going to be the setup year for boxing for these matches, these super matches, these money matches for 2019. So just be ready for that, and I'm predicting it. So when it goes down next year, you gonna see, cause you still got the GGG and Canelo rematch fight going on Cinco de Mayo weekend in Vegas. That's another good fight that's gonna happen. You know what I mean? But that's the rematch. Now, if GGG wins this again, hands down, he's better than Canelo. What's next for him? See, that's the question. What's that's gonna set him up for? Is there one more fight? Because if he wins in May, he possibly, let's see, he could fight again before the year's up, but it all depends on who and how much. So we'll see if Canelo or GGG get another fight in this year after this fight coming in May. You're pretty much middle of the year, so you could get in 2 fights in a year. Back in the day, that wasn't nothing, but nowadays it's like, you know what I mean? These dudes, man, they need some time off. Mayweather was the only one this last contract before he retired was going off of doing 2 fights a year. You know what I mean? It'd be May, and then he'd come back in September. He was doing his thing. So, but we'll see if other fighters, jump into that boat and do the same thing, or they just need to rest. You know what I mean? We'll see. But anyway, yeah, you got the welterweights is something to be, to take interest in. I think Jeff Horn is going to be the first one to take a knock if he goes up against those other dudes. Matisse solid. You figure at 39-4 with 36 knockouts, man, he's solid. Thurman is 28-0 with 22 knockouts. You got Errol Spence Jr. at 23-0 with 20 knockouts. Jeff Horn, he's not no pushover, but he's 18-0 with 12 knockouts. But to compare him with Matisse, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia, nah, ain't nothing happening. I don't think he can get down with them other dudes. They on another level to me. I'm looking forward. Matisse solid, but I'm looking forward to like the Thurmans, Errol Spence, and the Sean Porters, and I'm not gonna knock Danny Garcia. The dude is a real boxer, coming out of Philly. They breed good boxers out of Philly, so the dude is solid. He took a loss from Thurman, but he didn't get beat down by Thurman. You know what I mean? It went to the cards. It was a split decision. So yeah, we're gonna see what happens with that one, man. But yeah, look forward for big things in boxing coming up. NBA news. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers has signed Marcus Thornton to a 10-day contract. He was with the Cavaliers affiliate team down in Canton with the Canton Charge. But Thornton, he did his thing in the G League, man. He was putting up 18.8 points a game, 3 rebounds a game, and 2.9 assists. And he played 37 games for him, so he's been active. He's been doing this thing. I think they might have called him up. I think it might just be temporary, but he is a guard though. Don't forget Kevin Love is still out with the hand injury. I think Kevin Love is scheduled. I don't know scheduled, but they're expecting him to come back probably the end of March, which is a good time to come back and get back into basketball shape and get ready for this playoffs. So Thornton is no pushover, good guard, solid guard, nice dude. Fits in with those young legs up there in Cleveland, especially after that trade with the Lakers. So that was a solid trade. We talked about that on the last episode, so I know you guys, if y'all tuned in, y'all should have known and heard, what we thought about the trade. Also, the Portland Trail Blazers has signed Brandon Rush to a 10-day contract also. And if you guys don't remember Brandon Rush, that was the Trail Blazers' original pick back in 2000. Let me think. Was it 2008 or 6? Somewhere around there. Was it 6? I think they originally drafted Brandon Rush back then, and they traded him to get Brandon Roy. If you remember Brandon Roy coming out of Washington, the dude was, man, tremendous at the 2-guard position. He was gonna be something else, but injuries, unfortunately, cut his basketball career short. He had some injuries with the meniscus in his knee. And like I said, he was a super talent, man. This dude was solid. But Brandon Rush was the dude that the Blazers drafted originally and then traded him for Brandon Roy. So, as the world turns, Brandon Rush signs a 10-day contract with the Portland Trail Blazers years later. Yep, and so that's all the news we have going on now. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Tixter. This has been another episode of the Real Sports Bark podcast, brought to you by The Sports Hound. Check us out, www.thesportshound.com. Leave your name, leave your email address. Like I said, we're still running a t-shirt giveaway, so it's never too late. So you guys go ahead and go to the website, leave your information, let us know your gender, size, and when we pick our winners, we shall announce it on one of the future coming podcasts. I'd like to thank you again for listening. This has been Tixter, and I'm out.
Thanks for checking out the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark podcast. For more exclusive content, follow us on all social media. Twitter, Sports Hound 24/7. Instagram, Sports Hound Media. Facebook, Sports Hound Media. And on the website at thesportshound.com. And tell your damn friends about the hottest sports podcast on the web.